Hello, it's Dana with Love Sola Flowers. So our tutorial tonight is actually going to be prepping something for a later tutorial we have for Valentine's Day. So this is again the prep part, but it's a good tutorial because a lot of people are using lots of different styles of containers these days. We actually have a bunch of containers on our website, Love Sola Flowers now. But this is just something to help make life a little easier and a little less expensive. And I'm going to show you what we're doing in just a second. Again, all of our tutorials are here on YouTube, youtube.com/lovesolaflowers. We also have Facebook, Instagram, and of course, check out our website and see what things you need there. We've got supplies, flowers, and a bunch of other stuff there for you. So, if you've ever had a container, now again, Valentine's Day is coming up. If you've ever had a container that's a weird shape and you're like, how do I get all this different foam in here in order to make my project? You could use something called spray foam. And a lot of people, try to cut the blocks and do all that, and that's okay. But what happens is you end up using a lot of blocks, and it really actually is not very cost efficient that way. This also not only fills up it, but you can fill up a ton of things with just one can. So I'm just going to explain something because this is very serious to use, okay? Because you can have a big misstep if you don't use these things correctly. So this one is called Great Stuff for Gaps and Cracks. Now, there are different versions of Great Stuff, so make sure that you're reading the can before you start spraying. So this one is for gaps and cracks, okay? So this one is going to expand a lot, okay? There's one for small gaps and cracks. That one expands a little less. And then there's one for windows and doors. The one for windows and doors is usually a blue can. Now, there's other brands than Great Stuff, but this is the brand I'm using. You can get them at Home Depot, Lowe's, all of those kind of stores. Of course, you can get them on Amazon as well. But this is just going to make it very easy to fill all these odd-shaped things with just a little bit of this, and it goes a long way. I also suggest, because even if your bottle says that it's reusable, a lot of times it'll dry up in the nozzle and it won't be reusable. So get all of your containers out at the same time and fill them all up at the same time. So again, if you have one that says gaps and cracks, or even large gaps and cracks, which you don't want to use actually, just use the ones that says gaps and cracks, or small gaps and cracks, or windows and doors. Then you're just gonna put your nozzle on, okay? They usually come with the nozzles not on. Now, if you have a brand that maybe it already has it, but you're definitely going to want to have some napkins and stuff nearby, because if it kind of like sometimes comes out the nozzle a little bit ahead of time, and you don't want to make a mess and get all over the place. It does stick. You don't want to get on your hands. If you're the kind of person that hasn't used this before and are a little nervous, definitely wear gloves so you don't get it on your hands, because it's sticky if you do, and it's hard to get off. So again, you're not going to want this on anything except for what you are purposely putting it on. So I'm actually doing this heart-shaped box. It's a cardboard box that I have. Again, we're going to actually be using this for our craft this week. You should put maybe like a mat down underneath it, because sometimes some of these containers you don't even realize actually have some cracks themselves at the bottom, and you don't want it to seep out onto your table. So I'm just going to put my little napkins down just to double make sure. Okay, let me pull this closer to me so we can see the whole box. Again, I would lay out all of your containers. Maybe put like a tablecloth down, lay them all out, and use one bottle at the same time. Because again, sometimes it says it's reusable, the can, and then it hardens up and then you wasted all that. Again, the can range wherever you get it from like $3.50 to $7, depending on what brand, what style, and from where you get it. But again, way cheaper than buying a bunch of foam to put in your containers. And also this fills the shape perfectly. And again, it's expanding. So you're going to want to give it a good shake. Remember that some of them expand more than others. I do not want to fill my box more than 50%. Okay, because really in most of your pieces, you're just needing some foam in there, and your wires can be long enough to reach it. So you don't need it like to the top. You're not going to want it to the top. So I'm just going to show you how I do it. I'm going to pull the trigger. If it's loud, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to fill it up. I'll show you where I stop. Looks like mashed potatoes. Okay. Now I'm going to take my napkin and I'm just going to wrap it around the nozzle so that it doesn't drip anywhere while I'm doing the rest of my tutorial here. So as you can see, I kind of made sure that I went around, bloop, 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 bloop. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Obviously, it's just foam, so it's not a big deal. Seems like my bottom is pretty sealed, so I'm not going to have to worry about it expanding out. But look, it is, I don't know if you can see, it is less than 50%. When this dries, it will be almost to the top. You'll see it later. I'm going to do a tutorial this week on a Valentine's Day box. And so you will get to see what it looks like when it poofs up. But you just want to make sure that you're not going over 50%, especially if it's your first time using it. The windows and doors one, you can go a little bit further up than the other ones. But again, you're just wanting enough foam where you can get a wire into it. You don't need it all the way to the top. It's not that big of a deal. But here's the big tip of it all. So what happens is the outside, the top part, will harden first. It gets a little hard, and then the bottom part stays a little bit gooey in there for a while. It takes a pretty long time to dry. So what you're going to want to do is after about... I say about like 2 to 3 hours, I'll go in with a wire and I poke it a few times. Then again, another couple hours after that, I'll poke it one last time. I will leave it overnight, and it should be, you know, you'll see even where you poked it, the little things will maybe climb up out of it. But you're going to want to keep it at least 24 hours before you start a project on it, because even if it feels like it's dry, if there is anything at all that's liquid or wet inside, if you start putting your flowers in with the wires, it'll actually like push them out. It'll actually rise up still because you're letting some of that air out and some of that goo out, and it'll actually like pop out your arrangement. And plus, you don't want to ship it like that either, because God forbid you send it and it kind of explodes and expands in the mail. That would be bad. So I would let it dry for at least 24 hours, but make sure you have poked it generously at least a few times over that course of time. Even after 24 hours, if you want to do one last poke around just to make sure, and then leave it one more day. So it's not something that you can do last minute. This is definitely something that you have to plan ahead your crafts. But again, you can do all of your containers at once and you'll have them ready to go at a moment's notice whenever you're wanting to use them. So again, spray foam saves money, saves time trimming down all the foam, saves a lot of mess, because I don't know about you, but I get the heebie-jeebies when I cut the foam, and it's like chalkboard, nails on a chalkboard. Not what I like to do. I hate cutting foam. It gets all over the place. So this is a perfect way to do all of my containers really quick and easy. And again, we'll see part 2 of this craft, which is our Valentine's Day flowers, and you'll get to see how much it rose and how I kind of like poked it and made it work. So again, this is just the tutorial, just the foam, and then we'll get to the craft once this is dry and has risen, and you will see how much it rises. So make sure you look for part 2 of this tutorial.